The idea of kismet, while generally thought of as coincidence, is something that I've always believed in. I've always been of the opinion that everything happens for a reason, and if I get a flat tire on my way to work, well, there was probably an underlying reason for the event, or at least I hope to find one. Perhaps the 15-minute tardiness would save me from a greater, later frustration that would have happened had I made it to work on time. I've always done things in my own way and never listened to what someone told me I should do instead of what I wanted to do. And so, at the ripe old age of 18, I began my career as a college student. And I'd always loved art, so naturally I chose to study fine art. So that I could one day become a famous artist? No, that wasn't it. I knew I didn't want to become a famous artist, but I also knew I wanted the skills that come with a bachelor's in fine art. Whenever I would tell someone my major, they would inevitably ask me, "Art? Well, what are you going to do with that?" And I would laugh and reply that everything is art. I couldn't tell them what I wanted to do with my degree, but I knew that I wanted to become an advocate for the arts. My passion for the subject flows through my veins, and once I get started on the lengthy arguments for why art should be a requirement for all students, my advocacy becomes abundantly evident. After graduating, I thought I'd pursue graphic design and become, in a sense, a commercial artist. I made custom t-shirts and logos for events, families, funerals, bridal showers, you name it, I made it. August came around, and I started to feel as though something wasn't right. After a year of not being a student anymore, I started to realize that I was missing something. I had been a student for almost all of my life. From the age of 4 to 23, my life revolved around the school year. August comes along and you have to get ready for a new season, start preparing for new teachers and new books. It didn't take long before I realized that I loved school too much just to give it up forever. My passion for art and my passion for school just suddenly seemed to come together into this melting pot of ideas. Maybe I should go back to school to get a master's degree in fine art. No, that didn't seem right. MFAs are for famous artists and professors, and I knew I belonged with a younger population. I belonged with students. My decision to become an art teacher simply came together. Once I looked at the teaching certification program at UT, everything just seemed to fall into place in a matter of weeks. Loans, acceptance letters, course schedules, and advisors just seemed to work together to get me on the path to becoming an educator. While the path that led to my decision to become an art teacher seemed easy enough, I would not agree that the journey through the VAS program was always sunshine and rainbows. I came into my fair share of hardships when it came to dealing with being the only post-bac VAS student at UT. I constantly had to prove to someone that I was post-baccalaureate and that I wasn't just along for the ride, so to speak. After a year and a half preparing to enter the classroom, I was simply terrified to stand in front of a group of students and play teacher. Sure, I'd been taught by the best of the best and had spent hours and weeks even thinking about how I wanted to be perceived. But there I was, before entering the art room at Davis Elementary, and all I could think was, what if the teacher hates me? I didn't know where to go, where to park, who to talk to, or how to dress. I came in my first day wearing a much too formal polka dot dress with black tights. Sure, I looked professional, but to a group of kindergarten students who were using paint, I looked like a blank canvas. After the initial shock of entering the room, I realized I was here for a reason. I was here to learn. I needed to watch my teacher, Mrs. Gary, and see how she interacted with her students. I needed to see how the students interacted with each other. And after about a week, I got into quite a routine of sitting in the corner and watching the kids make art. I was thinking I could figure this teaching gig out, and then it happened, my first day teaching a lesson. The fear and anxiety came back, and I found myself questioning my life plan. I took a breath, practiced teaching my dog about overlapping objects in Georgia O'Keeffe, and realized that a big part of being an elementary teacher is being comfortable acting like a clown in front of students. Just when I felt like I was becoming a teacher, it was time for a change. I was to begin student teaching at Pflugerville High School. After my time at Davis Elementary, I was extremely nervous to start somewhere new. I was sure at this moment that I was meant for an elementary population. The fast-paced schedule of elementary school seemed to help me create a routine for myself, and I really wasn't looking forward to starting over with a brand new population. Although I had spent some time with the students at Pflugerville High School, I didn't know how to handle teenagers. They seemed so much older and much scarier than a group of second graders armed with wet paintbrushes. They all had serious lives outside of my classroom. Friends, families, boyfriends, and girlfriends, not to mention college applications, and prom. And that's when the fear returned. What have I done? I don't want to teach high school. No, is all I thought on my drive to school that first morning. The first day I kept reminding myself that I was older than these students. I shouldn't be afraid of them. I paid my taxes, and I graduated college. They should be more nervous of me. And then the first bell rang, and a crowd of near adults walked into the art room with piles of books, and not one of them seemed to have a pencil to their name. I found myself quickly falling into a routine and a level of comfort with the students. I found myself making connections, respecting them, admiring their artwork. It seemed the more I engaged with the students, the more they were eager to learn from me, and about me. Most of these students had more raw talent for the arts than they knew, and I couldn't wait to get my hands into their lesson plans. My cooperating teacher, Mrs. Huffman, was more than accommodating when it came to letting me experiment in the art room. She'd spent 10 years teaching in the school in special education, and this was her third year teaching art. She was new enough to understand my fears, but experienced enough to tell me that I was going to be great. I started working to create lessons and working to learn students' names, routines, experiences, and interests. I worked to find out the kinds of activities the older students were more excited about, and it turned out that it happened to revolve around my enthusiasm, as well as a level of messiness they were allowed to create. Although I was confused for a student by other teachers at least once a day, the students began to recognize me as a figure of authority, and they came to show me the respect they showed Mrs. Huffman, in part because she demanded it, and in part because I learned to demand it myself. I made sure to show my respect towards the students, but also to remind them that I was not a student. I was not their friend. I was an authority figure. I can help them with problems, help them learn, and help them realize when they're acting like jerks. And, well, sometimes they acted like jerks. Although they were in fact sporadically bothersome, I also discovered that for the most part, they were still just kids. I remember myself in high school struggling to grow from childhood to young adulthood, and I understand that they may act out, and they acted out in a way to look for attention, for advice from a mentor. And as the weeks went on, that mentor turned out to be me.